Yeah,
No, we
you
don't.
did
We
that.
haven't.
My plan is I didn't want
We have an hour.
everyone else.
So-
Oh, we don't have a, okay, we have a minute. Okay. Hi, everyone. I think we're all here. Karen's down there. We're just missing.
That's fine.
Let me just look at my. Sorry, normally Steve gives us a lot of time to set up, but not in our last. More efficient.
Next meeting. Maximum efficiency will be achieved.
Okay. Well, why don't we
Roberto
just
said
do
he's
the-
supposed to be here, so I don't know if we
Who
want to.
is?
Roberto?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we just go through the introductions one last time, and then
Sounds good?
we'll start into it. And Kenny, you're gonna ask for public comments at the beginning, so we
Yeah.
know how many you have at the end?
Let's do introductions first, okay?
Mark Jimmy, resident architect, and on the other Altenheim board.
So the one prompt, we're asking everyone to share what you've learned as a committee volunteer.
Oh.
But let's do that after, let's do that after we go through the.
Oh, you want to do that
Yeah,
again? Okay,
We
sorry.
might need as much time as possible for this.
All right,
I don't know, we'll see.
we'll see.
Steve Rouse, resident, attorney.
Great, thank you.
Jeff Smith, resident.
Jocelyn Sims, newish resident.
Dave O'Brien, resident, realtor.
Karen Swinger, 12-year resident, nonprofit administrator.
Marty Tlalian, 50-year resident, retired engineer.
Kurt Hansen, ecologist, environmental scientist, and resident of the little island south of Roosevelt and west of North.
Scott Preslack, 4.5-year resident, transportation planner.
Dave Gulias, president of the Grove Residences across from Altenheim, and retired, semi-retired designer.
Good evening, I'm Cindy Kruller, I'm with Muse Community Design, and I'm working on behalf of the village to facilitate the process with all of you, so thank you. Marty?
Yeah, you guys have all seen we've had a couple drafts go back and forth, not so much back and forth, back out to people and then comments to Google Forms. And we've incorporated those comments. The last one, I think, we sent out on Friday. There were comments made. We incorporated those this morning. Steve did us a service of doing a grammar check, so there are those changes as well. The changes that we have made since a week ago are, I believe, shown in red. If you can go ahead and put that up, Kitty.
I am, I just need a minute to make it a lot bigger for all
With
of
track
us.
changes.
Give me one more minute, please.
Some of the changes, from what I just sent out, I hope you maybe had a chance to see, is I did go ahead and put together an executive summary. It's probably a little shorter than most of the executive summaries for reports, but it just kind of highlights the main points. If anybody feels like they want to put a few more things in there or not, essentially all I said was that, we're a committee formed by the village. We reviewed the various previous documents and regulations and contractual requirements, and recommends that a mix of public space
Yes, what?
and
Second line down.
residential development.
At the end there should be a space between ads and they,
Thank you.
assuming we do a lot of that.
We'll see how good of a job you do, Steve.
Well,
Just
the
kidding.
problem is there were so many changes.
I
I
know.
ran the grammar checker and freaked out. So then I had to do the other changes in the clean version, so,
Okay, hopefully we'll,
yeah, it'll be fine.
yeah.
Sorry.
Should we use the other one then and just, because in this case, in yours here, Kenny, is that the underline is all the change?
There was a lot of changes.
Yes,
There's a
yes.
clean version that,
So I have the clean version where I also made the changes to the, hang on, sorry.
you want to accept all changes on the clean version and then that way we can see.
At least committee members might be more familiar with the one that we've been working on for the last week, or that they've been reviewing for the last week.
Which one is that, Marty?
The one that I sent out,
This afternoon?
yeah.
Okay.
After lunch.
So this is G's theme version.
And while we're waiting, do we have a sign-up sheet that we want to circulate for public comments?
I'll just take names. Would anyone like to provide public comment at the meeting today? What's your name?
We don't know
Chris
yet.
Harris.
Okay,
Yeah, we don't know yet.
okay.
Well, what do we don't know what to comment on for this meeting as opposed to the
I
last
think
one
we know.
until we hear.
Okay,
I mean, what do you guys
We'll
think?
leave lots
We
of
don't know
time.
yet.
Yeah, okay, good.
We'll leave lots of time, Marty.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Is it better to put down your comments and then if you have nothing to comment on, simply say it with a comment?
That works too.
As soon as I connected, everything goes like 0.4 size font. Okay. I appreciate everyone's patience. Just give me a second.
It's a weird season.
All right.
I love my whistle.
Your recommendation is in the Northwest End.
Better reception down here than the second floor.
Yeah, really.
Yeah?
It says press the down button if you have a PC.
That's dangerous. We can see what Kimmy's been watching.
No, this is not my TV.
That's the TV.
Oh, wait, that's not yours? That's not what you've been watching, Kindy?
Yeah.
That's what they've been watching at break. Uh-oh, careful.
All right, let me turn it, let me get the classics.
Because it's bad.
Classic.
many people sitting in the break room watching TV. Hey, it's like $94. Hi.
Madam Chair, that's me, make yourself hungry. Yes, me.
Kenny, can you just unplug the cable from your computer and plug it back in?
Hey, are you still there? Yeah, can you put down here for a second? Some EV issues.
Well, oh, wait,
It was.
okay.
Hey!
Oh, thanks, Kurt. Made it look so easy. Not touching it.
Not that it backfires.
We're just gonna wait.
You can click on that.
We got it.
It's working.
Hang on. We're just gonna- Okay.
Yeah, it's a new cable, I got a thinner cable.
So as you're going on, make sure you like keep swiping so it doesn't go to sleep. That's what happened last time when the thing
Okay.
shut off.
Excuse me? Maybe source.
Is this supposed to point in?
Yeah.
Right, just point this.
So Marty, do you want to just lead the discussion around what you sent?
Well, without being able to view this, view the, you know, what we've got is the document with the changes that we've made over the last week, and I was hoping that we could step through it, accept or
Okay.
reject them, and,
Okay.
you know, have it finished up. You
You
know,
want to just make copies of what you have?
worst case, yeah, we have to just make
Hang it out.
copies.
I mean, I have no revised version in the car, if you want that too,
What version?
or the one that I edited, I got that version.
Well, I have the version that, one copy of
Concerned
the,
about this, like it's not powered.
Well, I don't, yeah, I did not bring my computer cable, it's fully charged.
I have the copy, but we'd have to make, you know,
See if the port is
that's the version that that everyone got this afternoon.
Party cord.
When you plugged it in from the get-go, it worked.
Right.
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is just reboot that. Reboot the computer. No, restart.
I'm going to see it's too big for it.
That's what they always said.
All these turn off. So you're just all gonna have to give me a moment to restart it. Oh my God.
Can push this.
Getting all the exciting stuff, Laura?
Oh, yeah.
Did you get it?
So make sure this is.
I'm not touching it. I'm not touching
This is
it.
pushed in here and that's pushed in. So maybe.
I think it's all right.
Case for duct tape.
Something to be said for working with,
Emergency
bench tree car.
duct tape and high tape.
Okay.
All right.
All right, good.
Sorry, everyone.
All right.
Thank you for this.
And just that for our guests, and for me, it was hard of hearing. There was a comment made last time that they couldn't hear. So let's try to project a little bit more when we jump in on any comments so that everyone can hear.
Thank you, Steve.
As I was saying, the executive, I did add an executive summary, just did that today. It's really just a kind of short as far as executive summaries go, just so that anybody can look at it and get the essence of what the report has. One thing that I did not include, but I think that we should, if everyone's agreeable, is at the end of the report, I'd like to put all of our names. So, that's not shown, but I think that would be appropriate at the end of the report, that the members of the committee be identified. Everybody okay with that? Okay. I guess if anybody has any comments on the executive part, they want more or less, take a quick look, and if you do, speak up. Otherwise, we'll move into the main body and start going through the organization of it. Okay.
This does not include Steve's review.
This doesn't
Not
include.
include my,
Oh.
some of them.
No. Yeah, I made some, yeah, but the grammar will,
We'll
we have to
nail that out
examine.
after the meeting. We're not gonna change any.
The site background, as you see, hasn't changed much over the last week. I did change the acronyms, because we refer to the facility, Altenheim facility. We had a couple different terminology for that, so to be consistent, when we're talking about the residents, or the Altenheim residency or facility itself, I turned that into the ASLF, Altenheim Senior Living Facility.
You know, I'm gonna have a request, and it's not necessary, but it privately owned, as we were chatting, it implies a person owns it. It's really owned by the Altenheim, and it's nonprofit. So
Okay.
I want to say,
Non-profit.
yeah. There is no single person or.
Okay.
That owns it.
So instead of privately owned, we should just say nonprofit
Yeah.
senior living rental community?
Yep.
Okay. You can capture that.
Yep.
I think the rest of it is, as we've talked about, just gives a little bit of background on the facility. Any other comments to that section? Okay. The next section talks about our committee. It likewise has not changed really from what we've been looking at for the last week or two. Talks about how that we were formed by the village council this year. And basically what we've done by reviewing, touring the facility, looking at some of the regulations and the contractual requirements, and that the fact that it does essentially is unchanged from what the building, the way it was purchased from by the village in 2001, and identifies the developments that have taken place since the purchase, which include the residences at the Grove and the townhomes along Van Buren. The next, I'm sorry, the section then two talks about our committee, Steve and Kindy's facilitation of that process, and our two commissioners that are here with us tonight. That terminology was, I think, Kindy's. How do you guys feel like being called the ex officio? Serving as ex officio members? I'm not that familiar with that term.
Non-voting member.
Pardon me?
It's an advisory.
Okay,
It's-
all right.
Yeah, how I am with the rest of
Sounds good. Okay, then we get into the general recommendations. I think it's fair to say that we all have felt like a mixed development is appropriate for this site, residential and park. And then we list the factors that we think are critical, or certainly important for the future development.
So the one that I had probably had the most comment on was the zoning point of that. And a lot of this has to just do with the agreement, the purchase agreement. In addition, in zoning, just kind of reading through that, the current zoning's R3, that's correct. And the restricted covenants in the purchase agreement further limits the zoning to, actually it's R1 or R2. Now, obviously, if you could do R1 or R2, you could do R1,
Yeah.
but in it says R1 or R2, with a maximum development of 8 acres. And I don't know,
Yeah,
I think that should probably be put
Yes.
in there, that is part of
Yes.
the covenant on that.
I think, and maybe Steve or Maria could comment, I think R1 is, anything that's allowed in R1 is also allowed in R2. So,
R2
yeah,
or
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that.
It's implied, I
Yes,
just
we
don't know
need
if you
not,
wanted to
I don't
put that
think we
in
need to
there.
say R1 and R2, but I think you're right, I think
I
we should
get
say.
into that next.
Mark, is it, I want to say it's 7.7 acres, or is it 8?
The contract that I have says 8 acres.
Okay.
And if you want, or I could jump to this, and I don't know if you want to put the rest of this in, it says, I'm just gonna read this exactly, it's from Article 29, Section 8. Purchaser may develop 8 acres of the property into residential dwelling units or any other permitted use under R1 and R2 of the zoning ordinance of the Village of Forest Park, provided that such use will not interfere with, here's the big one, reasonable, quiet enjoyment by the residents of the buildings A and B and their apartments and the surrounding property retained by Altenheim.
Can't we just put inconsistent with the restricted covenants? Do not go.
That's fine too, as long as we, because there's other restrictive covenants, is that, but those are the big ones in my mind.
We already have in the third line down, in accordance with restrictive covenants of record against the property. I don't think we have to delineate each and every restrictive covenant that the
No,
property
no.
is subject to.
But,
The developer's gonna know that, everyone's gonna know that.
Mark, do you want to, include, say like including, and then that passage you just read?
I would like to see that in there, I mean, our board talks about that every meeting. Not this board here, but our
Yes,
Altenheim
yes.
board. But I agree with Steve, you could just also take the other
Just
thing.
add that to restrictive covenants, in
Yeah.
accordance with restrictive covenants and the quiet, and the quiet enjoyment of the Altenheim development.
Yeah, maybe that's a way of including the quiet enjoyment, and if you want to, we can say reference clause 29 or something like that, or maybe just enough to say,
Yeah.
nothing to infringe on the quiet enjoyment of the residences.
Quiet enjoyment,
Is there
quiet
any,
enjoyment restriction contained in the covenants.
Okay,
is there any reason
Sounds
why
good.
we couldn't include a copy
It's pretty wordy, I would say we don't.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's why if we
it's
just
long.
in my mind, because there's a lot of things in here that talk about the village could use it for their own building, existing buildings for their own use. Well, they've been removed, so there's a lot of parts of this that are no longer relevant, yeah.
I got you, okay.
Yeah, I think
Just wondering.
the larger point of this is just to make whoever's reading it know that there are existing restrictive
Yes.
covenants in place.
Yeah.
And it has to be built consistent with those restrictions.
Right.
I just have a random question. How is that evaluated? Like how is, like if someone proposes an R2 development, that's, how is there an approval process that would be triggered at that point?
I think that's a great question, and I don't know, Steve could probably answer that better than I, how that would be interpreted, because it says you can't develop more than 8 acres.
So if you develop 9, you need violation, and then
Yeah.
you put up, you could have it torn down, so.
Yeah.
There would have to be some, obviously there'll be as it says in here, require negotiations between the village developer and ASLF board of directors. So you're all.
That's if
gonna
it's a
agree.
PUD.
No, but even if it's not, you're gonna
Yeah.
have to agree, everyone's gonna have to sign off on the development, you're gonna have to consent to it. You're gonna have to agree, there should be a site plan, it's gonna have all the boundaries. So whatever you put up, the village puts up, is not gonna be subject to your future complaint that it doesn't comply with the village.
And that's one of our specific recommendations, is that whatever happens should go through the PUD process to make sure that we address all these issues before any shows up there.
Yes, but that's for public input. This is for getting a plan to submit to public input, because without that plan approval by those 3 parties, you're not even gonna get to the PUD process. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of hashing out at that meeting.
It's a hurdle.
Yeah, yeah. Okay with what we've added there?
Again, personally, I'd like to add a little bit of the verbiage, even though I realize it's redundant, and if you guys want to say no, I completely get it. I would just like to be redundant and say, you know, R1, R2, maximum development 8 acres, you know, continued quiet enjoyment of the property. What was it, I'm sorry? Yeah, then you don't have to be redundant and add that. And the one copy I had, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I agree with Mark, at least adding the max, or the cap of 8 acres.
Yeah.
And this way, any developer who's interested will immediately see that first and foremost and know that, yeah.
Development, we should write.
Yeah, development.
Is that okay? Yeah, it's awkward.
We can clean up the
Yeah,
verbiage.
you guys can clean it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
On a maximum of 8 acres. Of development.
And maybe in accordance with the restricted covenants?
That's in there.
Then like a couple lines down. Next line.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this,
And then he wants, on that second line, right before R2, R1, R2.
okay.
But that's, if you think that's redundant,
It
that's
is.
fine, it's implied. Yeah, no, I'm just saying, it's,
Spend my life.
yeah, okay. To me, it's understood, but I don't know if it's understood
Yeah,
for
there you
everybody.
How about with the maximum development?
I wouldn't say and, I would say or. On R1.
Okay. With a maximum development of 8 acres?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, very good. You know, one thing that, I know I think we all agree that, you know, and I don't know, Steve, if there's a standard by which cemeteries have to be maintained to. I actually have had a resident come to me and say that they really have to clean up that cemetery. You know, we just say in there, maintaining a a condition consistent with other cemeteries? Is there?
It's regulated, cemeteries are regulated by the state.
Are they regulated as far as maintenance goes?
Yes.
Does that?
Altenheim is currently in violation.
Fine, I'm not 100% sure how that's officially recognized. I know that when they originally purchased the property, they tried to get the Altenheim to agree to deed the property over to Concordia, and Concordia would maintain it, but they weren't interested. That cemetery is entirely people who had no living relatives at the time of their death. So,
Yeah, but
they're
still,
on the hook
it's
for
a final
maintenance.
resting
That's the
place. It's
bottom
gotta
line.
be.
It needs to be.
It needs to be.
Are we happy with how it's written, or is there something more we want, a better way to say it?
Well, how about just consistent with Concordia Cemetery?
Okay,
That's a standard.
yeah, that,
And they could always farm out the maintenance of it. They don't have to farm out the ownership. But they can farm out to Concordia the maintenance. Open up that back door and just let them drive in with their people.
or maybe, for example, Concordia, or something like that, including. Okay. Mark, is that okay? That's not, okay? You know, I know we've talked about finances, and I remember something that Roberto was, and others, we all have recognized that, you know, that financial considerations would be a big part of this development for the village, not only in terms of what ongoing costs, initial costs, what the village receives as revenue, but generally that was any detailed analysis that is outside our scope. So we just recognize that it's outside the scope, but that we hope, we want to see an increased revenue and no financial burden to the village.
And maximize the sale price.
Pardon me?
And maximize the sale price of the property.
Well, I think we talk about that towards the end. Maybe we can go to that section where we have to balance, so the village has to balance between, you know, providing green space and,
I'm just saying, but add that phrase in revenue. You don't discuss maximizing the sale price. That's
Yeah, but
another component of revenue is you got the tax, withholding taxes, or however you want to define it. You got the open space, the development, and then you got the sale price. I realize the two are linked, development and sale price, but you should list it separately, so you know that we try to address that. So you know that's a sore spot of the village.
well, you know, I don't think that, you know, I don't think that the village's goal should be to maximize the revenue. You know, there are more public considerations that I think that they're gonna have to balance. So I wouldn't wanna say that to maximize the revenue, because if it maximized revenue, then they would, you know, develop every little bit that they could, and.
How
you
about
know.
increase then? Provide increased revenue and sale price of the property.
Okay. Yeah.
It's obviously a trade-off between that and open park space.
Right.
That's what we've been getting, feedback we've been getting from day one.
What did you say, would you agree upon, Steve?
Just add, where it's in the second line in revenue, where it says provide increased revenue. You see where it says?
Oh, yeah,
increased-
yeah,
And then just
sorry.
add, and sale price of the property.
Oh, from the sale price of the property?
And,
Oh, okay,
and sale price of the property.
okay.
Because I assume the revenue here is from the tax base. If it's not clear, which is, I don't know. I didn't want to change too much of this when I was looking at it. I just wanted to try to keep intent alone, but I assume increased revenue comes to the village, and that
Yes.
revenue means the tax base. Doesn't say that. Maybe it should, to be clear.
Okay, well, maybe we just say increase tax revenue and increase sale price of the property. So we designate, separate the two of those, the area, you know, two components of the revenue.
Right.
Okay?
Should we turn this second suggestions on how to partially fund the establishment and maintenance? of-
I'm sorry, Kitty, say that again?
Sorry. Should we turn that last section into its own sentence?
The last sentence, yeah.
Yeah.
And put a period at the end of property and say these are the recommendations or our recommendations. Change it from, take out and put, make it include, yeah. Include, there you go. That's my suggestion. Easy to
Does there need to be like another, recommendations include suggestions
The
on how?
ACC whatever, like,
Yeah.
I always try to get more specific. Put it on the other global changes, we refer to it throughout this agreement as either property
Yeah.
or site.
I
So
saw.
when I made the change, I made a capital P property and took out all the site, all the other inconsistent references.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Good.
Yeah. I will merge those two.
Yeah, just.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't we just make it increase tax revenue and maximize the sale price of the property?
That sounds good.
But that's, you know, that's the idea that.
He didn't want to maximize
We
those.
don't, yeah.
So my compromise was increased.
I mean, it's quite technically there's zero tax revenue, anything that increases the tax
Yeah.
revenue currently, so.
What's that?
Plus, it's open space.
Yeah, well, I mean,
It's
so.
all open space for that increase.
Right. And I'm on I think like maximize just means you sell it to whoever's the highest bidder, whereas I
Right.
think that
It's
maybe
true.
some interest in negotiating the use versus the price, like if there's a better, a use more in line with recommendations that have a less of a sales price maximizing, that would not be maximizing the price, but it would be getting a value for the property at some level. So I would say maximize.
Good, or balance. I mean, really what we're getting down to is, someone's got to balance the increase in tax revenue
Yeah.
versus the open space.
Can you, well, you know, this is an important item. Why don't we go to the last section on, where we talk about this in a little more detail? Can you go to the end there where we talk about this? Take a quick look at what it says and then.
And that word should be was, analysis of thing. I made that change.
Yep. Thank you.
You know, and maybe there'll be another process where they do go into in more detail, and maybe start getting some preliminary proposals, you know, that maybe the other, you know, the village or forming other committees can then take this further. But this, you know, I think from our standpoint, we're recognizing the need to balance the desire for open public space with,
Should we put that in here, that the committee recommended further detailed analysis on, you know, the cost of development and the benefit to the village versus the open space? I mean, it's outside of our purview, but don't we recommend that someone do it in the future? Because I think you need that to make a decision.
yeah, well,
We're saying we're not up for that, but maybe someone else or the village, you know, they have consultants that analyze development for tax revenue. For example, Mark's got two plans, you can analyze both of them for tax revenue and see the cost of, the lesser development. And some people may say that's worth it, others may say not, but you really can't make a decision until you know what the difference is.
Maybe to add a sentence here to the fact that early in the developmental process, of a financial analysis will be required to, or to what we have
Encourages
good.
further investigation as to the cost of the development and the potential tax revenue to the village prior to making a decision. Something to just indicate that more work needs to be done on an economic basis, so you can balance development versus open space, which is what all the comments there has been about.
Okay. Okay, all right, back up. Community input, this is one of the comments we got through the Google Forms. We've talked about a few of those things, about best practices and encouraging the minority business enterprises, women's business enterprises. So other than that, any comments on that addition that we've made there?
On the parking and traffic, I didn't understand the reference to relationship to CTA. That mean the relationship to the CTA property or the access or to TOD?
You want to say, should that be proximity?
Yeah, the intent of that is to just kind of highlight the proximity to the transit center, and then just say that.
Yeah. So I didn't.
I just had not necessarily related to this specific, but there's that little plot of land that's right at the bend of Van Buren, and I didn't encounter any, I don't know what's gonna happen with that. Is that included with the buildable land, or what is that? It was never clear to me what that was, but I think it's important because it could be a, part of the Van Buren development there. It could be an access road of some kind there, so anyway, just a comment. But, Steve, what is that?
The corner belongs to the village.
Okay.
How it didn't get platted as a contiguous portion of the Altenheim property is, Moses has an explanation for that was never particularly clear. It doesn't belong to us.
But will it be,
Look, I don't know if we need to address it in this
Okay.
report, that area that's chopped off there.
just curious.
While we're doing the traffic, do you want to jump down to the traffic section? And this was Scott's work, and I thought it was all, I know it's longer than a lot of the other things that we've had, but I think it's captures some really important things, and at first I thought I was gonna whittle it down, then the more I looked at it, I thought, no, I really can't whittle this down.
Just dotting i's and crossing t's.
Yeah, no, so, Any comments on that from anybody?
Steve, are there any updates on the right out at displays on Van Buren?
That's not gonna be a discussion between the village and CTA. That's gonna have to be initiated by any potential developer as a
Okay.
qualifier for the intensity of use for any development there. I think it can be done. Our engineers looked at it.
Right.
We've done some field measurements. There's, you know, islands in the middle, and it's a good 45 feet.
I just didn't know if there was already contact made between the village and IDOT about that, or.
And Steve, I know you said that you've measured it, there's plenty of room there, but I don't know if we need to state that here.
No, I don't think so. I think just leaving that, that statement in, that intensity of use is directly related to the capacity for development. You know, I mean, you can't put a lot of units there if they can't get in and out.
And Scott, I thought your point on the traffic calming measures was good, you know, I thought maybe we should be saying something to that effect so you don't get a lot of bypass traffic there, but,
Right.
you know, I think enough to say, what you said is probably enough.
I mean, we see how many people cut through Jackson already.
Yeah.
So cut over the 290, so if we open up Van Buren, just be more of that.
So under parks and public space, the second section, the north triangle, the Altenheim, actually that driveway is used. The existing driveway says it's not currently used, coming off the north. Is that what that's implying off of
Yes.
Madison? It is used.
Really?
Yes. And then also that gateway is, I don't want to get too technical, but if you say according to the agreement, has to be preserved.
But I think the agreement allows it to be moved.
Yeah, but it's kind of.
It'd
I
be
agree,
expensive.
It's kind of hazy how that whole thing is.
In the traffic section, we just include the masonry archway at the north end of the driveway is a protected local landmark. Just leave it at that.
But the driveway is used. And I was always kind of confused, and just because I don't think that driveway even has a PIN number to it, so I didn't know if it was. Because on this survey that we were given to this group, it calls it out as Altenheim entrance or boulevard.
I think at one point, at least from everything I've heard, it actually already belonged to the village.
I think it does.
Yeah, I thought
Yes,
so.
I believe it's
It
vacated.
is,
Yeah.
it's a big, but it's,
And the village bought it back.
well, I'm not clear on that myself, so yeah.
But do you think that it should remain open? I personally don't.
It's not hard to say.
No, the question is, you said it's not being used, it's being used.
Okay, we can take that out.
Yeah.
But I do think that the recommendation should still be that it be closed to traffic.
You know, I could see the committee making that recommendation, but I could also, as a board member for the Altenheim, we use it.
Okay.
So, that's fine, you know, I realize, that, you know, recommend it.
Do you want me to take this whole sentence out? Do you want me to take this whole sentence out? This one?
Where's that, what sentence is
The
that?
existing driveway is not currently being used for this. Currently, that's not correct.
Yeah, let's take it out.
No, I would say that only
But wouldn't we
the
actually,
existing driveway should be removed with only access being directly from Van Buren Street. Take out that it's not currently used for access to the Altenheim facility.
he's saying it is used for access, but wouldn't we instead make the argument that it's not a driveway, it's like a public roadway at this point? So if the village wants to negate a road that's not being used and doesn't want to pay for the maintenance, then can move it at their leisure. I mean, that's where I think calling it, I get what you were saying by saying it's an existing driveway that's not currently used. I understand that the people at Altenheim might use it, but they don't own it, so.
Maybe we could just say, like, there is an existing driveway used to access the Altenheim. And just leave it.
The title survey says dedication unknown, so.
What does it say, Steve?
Dedication unknown, so, and, you know, use can develop into ownership if it's, you know, open, continuous, notorious over a period of years. Adverse possession, so I don't know, I mean, I don't think we want to get into any of that.
Yeah, maybe just clarify, there is an existing driveway that is currently used by the Alten.
Facts.
But, that's out of that northern triangle, that's a big percentage of it. That's a waste to have that just be a, occasional driveway.
But we can also,
That's what the negotiation's for, because you're gonna want something from them, they're gonna want something from them.
But do you
Well,
also?
my guess is though that they don't have, the village owns that property, they can do what they want with it. It may be that it's not part of the part that's not developed, and then it stays in place, but
Do you change the sentence instead to say that it doesn't, there's nothing that makes it where it has to remain, if that's part of the agreement that's made.
yeah, we could just say there's an existing driveway in addition to an existing parking lot entrance off of Van Buren.
I just would ask, is it a driveway if it's a public road?
We don't know it's a public road, because the survey says dedication unknown. Has to be dedicated to be a public road.
Got it.
Who plows it in the winter?
Well, again, you're going toward ownership.
maybe
you're
just
going
take
to
that
use.
sentence out.
Okay.
Scott, that's yours, what do you want to
Altenheim's doing it for 20 years, it's theirs.
Pardon me?
I agree with taking out the necessary, I don't think we should suggest now that it should be removed. But just also note that there's an existing driveway that is not the sole access point for the Altenheim, or the ASLF. And I don't even think it's bidirectional, I think it's one-way southbound.
It is, yes.
So it's probably not even meets requirements for public street. The curb cut on the other hand, that's the end of the street. Take away the curb cut.
It can be just, there's an additional bi-directional parking lot entrance off of Van Buren Street.
Okay.
Yes, we've got three more, let's go, jump
Move
back
on,
up,
yep.
and hopefully we can get these last three sections. Not too much has changed from the residential development recommendations that we've made, other than added a preface to that, saying that it's, we recommend that a significant portion of it be developed, and then the rest of it, I think, is pretty much as we've been talking. And those listed things there, two flats, two flats, townhouses, row houses, and single-family homes are all the items that are in R1 and R2.
I feel like with that archway, it's more hassle than it's worth trying to do.
Right, but the scuttlebutt over here was that it's not landmark, it's.
I don't know if it's truly landmark.
It's not. We had the DNR that gave us that consultant before we took down the accessory structures in the back. We had to have them, a preservation person come in and do a complete audit. I think it's on the website, isn't it?
So what is the protection of the arch?
The restricted covenants.
It's in the contract. It's in the
It
contract.
says the
Maybe
masonry
protected by,
maybe shall be
can you say
preserved and
protected by the
maintained by the
restricted
village.
covenants?
Yeah, that was
The last time it was damaged, the village made the repairs.
There you go.
And that's part of the agreement. That's exactly how it's spelled out.
the park and public space.
If we're calling out the 8-acre ceiling, do we also want to put the 3-acre floor in here then for open space?
You know, we talk about a balance of development to parks at other places. I don't know if it's necessary to spell out, we've already said that that's limited to 8 acres, so I think that's gonna be part of the financial considerations on the village.
Why don't we want to spell it out?
Well, I think it takes away, you know, then why, if we spell out to say, okay, this many acres is developed, this many acres is park, then why do the financial analysis? We've already said that we've already made a decision, really, without knowing what the financial implications of that decision would be.
Are we a hard stop at 6:45?
It's only from the standpoint of that's when we announced the meeting, and we wanted to leave the commissioners the opportunity to go to their forum tonight, so. And we do want time for public comment.
We can just see if there's any more feedback or anything besides public parks.
And now there's just a short section there on commercial and specialty development that we've talked about, that we're open to that if something that can be worked out between the Altenheim facility and developer and the village.
Okay.
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 Maybe one last thing, if you go down to the traffic considerations, I think we have again in here about the driveway recommending to be closed. Do we actually want to make that official recommendation? Scroll up.
I do, but I'll yield to whatever the group wants.
Bottom of the last sentence in the first paragraph is on the screen.
Sorry.
So I think when I wrote this, it was a little bit softer in that the existing driveways should not be the primary point of access.
Must be pretty sure.
But
we talked about it though, didn't we?
we did, but we made the change up top and not down here.
Okay, okay.
What if you just say in the existing driveway, instead of just should not be, but more is to be factual, and just say that the existing driveway is not the only point of access
Yeah, right.
to the ASLF?
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. And I want to forego the sharing of our thoughts and let the public weigh in now if we can.
Chris, 3 minutes?
Sure. Thank you. First want to say a good community volunteerism is very important, so the people are serving on this committee. Thank you. But the committee itself, I have issues with. I think you should always be leery of a committee that's formed in an election year. You should be leery of a committee that has a decided end time. When you have a mayor that has a decided outcome for the property already, and he handpicks.
Can you say it a little louder? I didn't catch that.
The mayor who has a predetermined outcome for the committee.
So everyone can hear it?
The mayor who has a predetermined outcome for the committee picks a guy to head the committee who has the same agreeable outcome, and I love Marty, he's a friend of mine, we just don't agree on this. I think you have to be leery of that. You have to kind of look back, why does this have to be done by a certain time? Why has there not been any public input? We've had public input over the years for this. We had a town hall that packed this place, and people had their ideas. We've done surveys, always comes out. major green space, we're talking in the 80s to 90 percentiles. That's what the public wants. We don't need to keep talking about it, we need to take action. Past studies have all said this. There's been other commissions on this. The gentleman sitting behind me ran one for quite some time with the concept of having it be a park, which was a fantastic idea, and they were fine-tuning the ideas of it gonna be just a music facility or park with different ideas. It was a great conversation. We have to remember too that the property's now paid off, the bond's paid off on this, so that almost $300,000 a year is just going into the general fund coffers when it was set aside to pay for this bond. That could be used for another bond to develop the property or upkeep at the current time. There's stuff you could do over time with that $300,000 that we're just kind of sitting on. I wanted to say I was very offended by the stunt of the police and fire coming here saying that the money for their pensions would be greatly impacted. Any development over there is going to be a drop in the bucket towards their pensions. And that was an absolute stunt that we should have been ashamed of that they came down here and did, to me. And what else do I have? I just listen to what the public has said over and over. They want it to be green space. The mayor doesn't want it to be green space. You know, they're butting heads on that. Why is there a determined outcome? Why are these meetings held at 5:30 when no one can get to them? How about one with all the public at 7 o'clock and invite people? You'll get more people here and you'll get more input. You're not getting the input you get when you have a 5:30 meeting over and over. I've mentioned this to the gentleman who runs the meetings, but you just can't get here. That's my 2 cents. Thanks for allowing us public comment.
Any other public comment? Gene?
Gene Armstrong, from the Grove. Will there be an opportunity for the public to see this report and offer comment on the report before the committee makes its final sign-off and submits it to the village?
Well, you know, this is a public comment period, not a back and forth, but this report will be finalized as you see it here. It'll be sent to the village, how they decide to present it to the public and seek comments.
So
this is the last meeting of this committee.
Yes, so I take it the answer to the question that I asked is that what you have, we don't see, and we won't see unless we can read that screen, unless the village trustees decide that they'll make it available to the general public.
Well, are we gonna put it up on the website?
I think it's on the website. The versions are on the website. You can, there's.
Not the latest versions.
It's not on,
When was it posted?
Here are copies of what we've gone over.
No, I don't want to know.
When will it be up?
I'll be sending a cover letter, and the only thing we're gonna add, I think we'll add the names at the end of this. I will send a cover letter transmitting it to the village over the next couple days, just saying, here is the report from the committee, and that we appreciate the opportunity to participate in our input to the village.
Could you, are you finished? I don't want to.
And then the village
you
will
also-
do with it however they want to present it to the public.
Well,
Would
could
it be
you,
okay to put it on the website once we finished it?
Yeah.
At
least we hand it out.
Yeah. Could we let her finish?
well,
Steve, it'll be a public, Moses, this is a public document. Whatever we transmit to the village is going to be public, so.
could you also include perhaps at the end of the report that the public is asking that this be put out for the residents of Forest Park to see and comment on or weigh in on or something like that prior to, have another
No,
meeting?
the last thing I want to do is write this report for this committee, and that's the last thing you want me to do.
Well, the committee is the authors of this report. So the
Exactly.
village then will take it and however they want to follow up, and whether there's other committees formed, how they go through the development process. That's something that is not in our purview. We were set up to look at the property, look at the regulatory and contractual requirements, look at past public input, get some additional public input, and come up with our recommendations. And I think as a group, if I may say so, that the group has done a good job. I'm really happy with the kind of people and the backgrounds and the things that the committee's brought to this process. So I guess as we're wrapping up here, I do want to thank everyone for what they've done.
Can I just make
think
one
it's
other
been
suggestion of
good
maybe
job.
where you could put it? The mayor sends out his weekly bulletin, and I know a lot of people get it. Perhaps it could also be there as well as on the website. I mean, the more availability for the
Yeah.
public, the
Why
better.
don't, you know, why don't we formalize that? It's Gloria, we'll give your name, and that's your public comment. You want to give a formal public comment to that effect?
Sure. I think it would be wonderful for the citizens to see this final document via the mayor's weekly newsletter that he sends out on the email, as well as on the village website.
It's not on the village website, it's on the committee website.
Oh,
But the committee
well,
website is part of the village website, isn't it?
If you find it.
If you can find it.
Altenheim FP one.
Any other additional public comment? Oh,
Yep, my name is Paul Price. In addition, I was hoping somebody could explain what are the next steps for public interaction with this? Where will this recommendation go? Who would approve that? Who would approve the next step, et cetera, et cetera? If somebody could explain that, so there can be more public input and more public comment on this.
I will start the answer. So my understanding is we're working on this set of recommendations for the RFP. It's not an actual RFP, it's just a set of recommendations that the citizen committee put together. Marty as the chair will submit that to Steve as the staff person to receive that with a recommendation that it be submitted to the mayors and the board of commissioners for the village of Forest Park. Once that transmittal happens, it will be up to the elected officials on what will be next.
But actually, I don't envision, I'm gonna transmit this to the village, how they take it from there and what public input that they want to seek, that's up to them. I think the important part of our recommendations from the committee standpoint is, and we've emphasized it a couple times, is the use of a planned unit development and all of the requirements associated with a planned unit development that be a part of this. Just as the other developments in that area have been done under planned unit development, both the residences at the Grove and the townhouses at Van Buren. They went through that. I think there's many requirements in that, very, very strict public engagement requirements, traffic requirements, safety. That's our recommendation, that it be followed that process. How the village takes that recommendation and how they proceed, that's the village and the new council and staff and council.
Any other public comment? Yes.
Hi, Marilyn Jancowitz. Thanks a lot to all of you. I've been at all of these too, so I know how much time and volunteers you have given to this, so thanks a lot. The only thing I'm concerned about in what your report says is the way they're gonna address traffic. It's already bad. There's buses constantly, in addition to the new townhomes and us and Altenheim people something. I'm just and that CTA parking lot isn't very full anymore. But all of that traffic comes there too. It's gonna be a problem you guys have on your hand. So maybe I'm not clear on what you said about the traffic. That it's all, the main thing you said is there'll be access off of Van Buren. Did I misunderstand? Did you say that in this report?
Yeah, go ahead.
What we were discussing earlier is that any new developments, as Steve mentioned, to enhance traffic would need to open up Van Buren to go eastbound to Des Plaines.
Right.
And be able to turn right out.
Right.
So that not all the traffic has to funnel up to Madison Street.
Right.
And we also made recommendations that whatever development does occur, use traffic calming measures, speed humps, roundabouts, things like that, to slow traffic down and discourage cut-through traffic.
Now, is that in this report?
Yes,
I mean,
it
I've
is.
got a copy. Perfect.
Yes, it is.
Sorry.
And then, as a part of the PUD process, they almost always do a traffic analysis.
I know they do. Okay, good.
And a for
Thanks for the
existing use and
clarification.
proposed use.
Any additional public comment?
You can take my last name.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Gloria. I was gonna ask you
That's
afterwards,
okay,
but
BACKMAN.
thank you.
Thank you.
NAN?
MAN is.
Thank you.
Opposite of
We've got 3 minutes, so one more, we got time for another one.
I got 2 minutes.
But pardon me? Well, yeah, I'm using just a watch, a old watch. Anyone, then we were gonna share some thoughts. Anybody have short thoughts they wanna share for the last 2 minutes?
I've got something I'd like to say real quick.
Sure.
My one comment, and this is kind of for our group, but then also for everybody else that's listening, is the fact that all of us were asked to be a part of this because of our obviously living in our town, but then what our jobs are, our background, whether that's through our work or through our volunteering throughout the community as well, and our community involvement. And I even think it's been weird that we have these meetings and then that the mayor doesn't share anything. And I know that a lot of that keeps on being thrown at us, that we're not sharing this information. But it's like, he could have thrown it in any of those reports, so that's not our fault. And it's just very interesting to me that at the end of this, we'll submit this, and then they'll do whatever they want. They might just shelve this. And be like, cool, thanks for spending all this time having this conversation. But like this, just weird. What I thought was very interesting that we all did was we had to sit down, and it's great to think about all the beautiful, amazing things you can do with an empty piece of property. But all of us had to go, okay, let's actually go look at it. Is there even space to do X, Y, or Z here or there? And we basically mulled down, here are the actual problems this project is going to face. See if you can get somebody to come develop this. So, I don't know. I think everybody did a really great job of all of us did fight it out with a lot of different things day to day. And asked a lot of weird questions and talked about a lot of things, but this doesn't mean anything is going to happen based off of anything we've all talked about.
Even though at the candidate forum, both mayoral candidates mentioned this committee
Yeah,
a number
they did.
of times.
Well, I wouldn't want to say that it doesn't mean anything, but you know, well, it's on why did we do this for 9 evenings?
Yeah.
But I think it's like, what we reviewed the 2014 comprehensive plan. It has a couple pages in there about what should be done. You know, and I was a part of the citizen group that was a part of that. And it talks about the need for green space and residential development. And, you know, we talked to the Park District, and as they have been, tried to be engaged with them a number of times. We talked to them again. It does seem like they're opening a little bit to the idea of being a part of it. They say not at this time. But, you know, these are all part of the things that, you know, I think our group did, that I think was you know, I think we, you know, looked at all the competing interests and stakeholders, and this is our report.
Yeah,
And I hope everyone feels good with it.
To Kurt's point, I think that on behalf of the committee, we all definitely want the board and the mayor to very seriously consider what we recommend.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is the
have no
point where
power.
we hand off our report and it is no longer in our hands.
Right.
I'd just like to give a shout out to Ralph Vivo, and he's provided a lot of inspiration. I mean, all kinds of ideas that came into my mind, and thanks for all of your great work, and I really, you're just such a great part of this community, and, you know, thanks for all of your work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, thank you, everyone.
Adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you.
Thanks for volunteering on that.